All Season 3, Episode 17, Old Relics. A lively Christmas Eve. Three scientists, Papaia, Banani, and Ravioli, and their assistant Igor, who work at Nesal, start getting interested in creationism. Their superiors, worried, send them to the psychologist, Professor Fagioli, a shady character determined to get them fired by making them look insane. We are in Professor Fagioli's office, where Ravioli is undergoing evaluation. Ravioli's session continues. Fagioli, weren't we talking about visiting your mom? Ravioli, oh, right, yes, I was telling you about when I went to see my folks and accidentally electrocuted the cat. Trying to get rid of an herbal tea, but it wasn't a watered plant. It was a lamp that short-circuited. Fagioli, yes, and with your mom completely unaware, as usual. Raviolino style. Ravioli, yes, and I forgot a small detail. It wasn't just any day, it was Christmas Eve, and all the relatives were there too. Fagioli, well, that doesn't seem like a small detail to me, but the cat. Are you telling me no one saw you electrocute it? Ravioli, no, because they were all distracted with the slideshow of the trip to Bengal. Fagioli, and those things still exist? Ravioli, yes, and that's exactly what saved me. Fagioli, it saved your lives, but surely didn't save the cat. That got electrocuted. Ravioli, no, I have to admit that with me, cats don't last long. A bit like Banani's phone credit abroad. But believe me, it's not my fault. Fagioli, whispering, good, this is perfect for the audio editor. Let's do a nice copy-paste. Ravioli, huh? Fagioli, I said, I'm sorry, you can count on me. Ravioli, oh, thanks. Fagioli, under his breath, yeah, to get you fired. But tell me, is this the incident you were talking about? Ravioli, no, cats getting hurt is everyday business for us. Something worse happened. Igor then commented, trying to guess. Something worse? Let me guess. Ravioli ate the figurines of the three wise men, thinking they were made of chocolate. How funny. Savedblog.com. Decorum and boiled fish. Three scientists, Papaia, Banani, and Ravioli, and their assistant Igor, who work at Nesal, start getting interested in creationism. Their superiors, worried, send them to the psychologist, Professor Fagioli, a shady character determined to get them fired by making them look insane. We are in Professor Fagioli's office, where Ravioli is undergoing evaluation. Ravioli was recounting an incident that happened during Christmas Eve. With a flashback, we go back to the day Ravioli visited his parents. Interior Christmas living room evening. The atmosphere is perfect. The Christmas tree shines in a corner, loaded with symmetrical and bright decorations. Ravioli's relatives are all seated neatly in the living room, like in a furniture commercial. Uncles in suits and ties, cousins wearing Christmas sweaters ironed to perfection. Grandma with the look of an Olympic judge of decorum. On the glass coffee table, the sweets are arranged by shape and color. Everything is in its place. Ravioli's mom, with a sweet voice and teary eyes, Dear Raviolino, I have a surprise for you. Ravioli, scared. What is it? Mom, laughing. Look what I found in the attic. She proudly pulls out Ravioli's old middle school backpack, faded and battered. Uncles and aunts together. Ooh, Mom, your old middle school backpack. I kept it all these years. Imagine all the memories. Let's open it together. Ravioli, turning pale. No, I don't think that's a good idea. Mom, determined. Come on, don't be shy. It'll be a trip down memory lane. Aunt Gertrude. Come on, now I'm curious. Ravioli, serious. Listen, Mom, don't do it. I'm serious. Too late. With a theatrical gesture, Mom opens the backpack and dumps it onto the glass coffee table. A rain of crumpled old notebooks, wrinkled papers, and along with them, pieces of rotten fish fall onto the sparkly table. Aunt Morella. What's that? Uncle Ernesto. That's disgusting. A toxic cloud of infernal stench spreads through the living room. The rotten fish, accumulated during afternoons at the after-school cafeteria, covers everything like a kind of putrid snow. A silence filled with terror precedes the tragedy. Grandma, covering her mouth. God, Cousin Julia. Sorry, I can't. Uncle Ernesto. The Ribolita from 98 is coming back up. And then the chain reaction. A synchronized vomit show erupts in the perfect living room. A cousin runs to the bathroom screaming. An uncle collapses onto the carpet heaving. Grandma shouts something in Latin. Mom, through tears, staring at the glass coffee table. My designer coffee table. Ravioli remains motionless, paralyzed by terror. End of flashback. Igor then commented. After decades of lies, finally the truth came to the surface. But we can't say the same for those fish. No, those had been dead for years. How funny. SavedBlog.com. The explanation of Genesis 7. 3 scientists, Papaia, Banani, and Ravioli, and their assistant Igor, who work at NASAL, start getting interested in creationism. Their superiors, worried, send them to the psychologist, Professor Fagioli, a shady character determined to get them fired by making them look insane. We are in Professor Fagioli's office, where Ravioli is undergoing evaluation. Meanwhile, Papaia and Banani continue their conversation about the book Banani found in his garage, which belonged to his grandfather, and talks about the geological evidence of Noah's flood. Papaia, scratching his head. Yeah, but even with millions of years, we can explain these things. Banani. Maybe yes, even though with millions of years, we're still left with a lot of doubts and mysteries. But look at this. Banani shows a Bible passage quoted from the book. Banani, serious, nodding. In Genesis chapter 7, it says that all the high hills and mountains were covered by water, and that every living thing that breathed air on land was swept away and perished. Papaia, frowning. In that scenario, there wouldn't even be a scrap of dry land left. Banani, leaning forward and speaking calmly. Exactly. Now, if this event really happened, what would we expect to find in the real world? Layers of rock everywhere, full of billions of dead animals and plants, rapidly buried under sand, mud, and limestone. Papaia, narrowing his eyes. And do we find them? Banani, firmly. Yes, Papaia. That's exactly what we find. Layer upon layer of fossils, spread all over the planet, trapped in enormous sedimentary deposits. Not just a few scattered remains, but entire graveyards of creatures rapidly buried. It's an impressive signature. Papaia, whispering, thoughtful, as if everything was submerged all at once. Banani, serious. Exactly as described. Not a local drizzle, not an isolated event. A global catastrophe. And the world and its rocks still tells that story. Igor. According to Genesis 7, the whole world was submerged all at once. All at once? Oh yeah, just like Banani at the airport starting that brawl at baggage claim. How funny. SavedBlog.com. Comments on the incident. 3 scientists, Papaia, Banani, and Ravioli, and their assistant Igor, who work at Nasal, start getting interested in creationism. Their superiors, worried, send them to the psychologist, Professor Fagioli, a shady character determined to get them fired by making them look insane. We are in Professor Fagioli's office, where Ravioli is undergoing evaluation. Ravioli was telling the story of when, on Christmas Eve, he made all his relatives throw up after his mother emptied his old backpack, full of rotten fish hidden there, since middle school, in front of everyone. Fagioli, very serious, taking notes. So, Ravioli, how did you feel when you sabotaged the entire Christmas Eve, turning it into a biological evacuation operation? Ravioli, embarrassed. Bad, but surely not as bad as my cousins, who threw up all over each other's brand new sweaters. Fagioli, nodding impassively. Tell me about the sweaters. It seems like a crucial detail. Ravioli. I don't know. They were the classic Christmas sweaters. White, red, and green, kind of crocheted. Fagioli, interested. You said crocheted. That seems like a key word. What does it bring to mind? Ravioli. I don't know. Maybe my grandma? Fagioli, taking detailed notes. Primary emotional connection compromised by olfactory trauma. Ravioli, confused. Okay. Fagioli, serious. While you were telling the story, I noticed a noteworthy element. Ravioli. What is it, Professor? Fagioli, without changing expression. You're surprisingly skilled at imitating your mother's voice. Ravioli. Yeah, I had to learn at school. It was the only way I knew to distract the bullies from my stinky backpack. Igor then commented, "Oh, brilliant strategy, pretending to be your mother to defend a smelly backpack." Freud would have written 3 volumes about that and no one would have read them. And the color of the cousin's sweaters? Yeah, sure, Fagioli, that's definitely a crucial detail. And speaking of details, whoever read your resume surely skipped quite a few. Especially after a nice recommendation letter. How funny. Savedblog.com. Imposter? 3 scientists. Papaia, Banani, and Ravioli, and their assistant Igor, who work at Nasal, start getting interested in creationism. Their superiors, worried, send them to the psychologist Professor Fagioli, a shady character determined to get them fired by making them look insane. We are in Professor Fagioli's office, where Ravioli is undergoing evaluation. Ravioli was telling the story of when on Christmas Eve, he made all his relatives throw up after his mother emptied his old backpack, full of rotten fish hidden there since middle school, in front of everyone. Fagioli. The cousin's sweaters. An extremely important detail, Ravioli. An extremely important detail. For a moment, Fagioli gets distracted, lost in his own thoughts. Flashback interior nasal public restroom 1984. A gray, dirty bathroom, lit by a flickering neon light. Fagioli, panting, leans over the sink. He splashes his face with freezing water, rubbing nervously. He looks at himself in the mirror. His reflection seems older, harsher. And that's when he hears the familiar voice, rough like sandpaper. Father, from the reflection, growling. Good job, Fagioli. Wash your face all you want. You'll never wash off what you really are, a good-for-nothing. Fagioli lowers his eyes. His hands tremble. Fagioli, in a low voice. I'm working at Nasal. It's important. Father, with disdain. Important? This intellectual clown show? I told you should have picked up a hoe. The land never betrays you, but no, you had to go and play the gentleman. Fagioli, murmuring almost like a child. I never liked the hoe. I never liked it, Dad. Father. A psychologist, huh? Look at yourself. You don't understand a damn thing. Fagioli. No, sir, I studied for this. Father. Yeah, with that correspondence course. And the campus. At the sports bar. You're a loser. Fagioli. But Father, scathing. You're an incompetent. You always were, and you always will be. Fagioli, trembling. No. Father. Look at you. You're a disaster. Without that recommendation, you wouldn't even be there. Fagioli. No, sir. It was just a little help from Cousin Ben at the Ministry of Asteroids on collision course with Earth. But it was only to show my real talent. Father. Your real talent? Being an imposter. Here's a piece of advice. Just keep pretending. Speak complicated. Take useless notes. But sooner or later, they'll kick you out on your butt. Fagioli wipes his sweaty face. Then, struggling, he straightens up, slaps his cheek slightly, and talks to himself. Fagioli, whispering, motivating himself. Complicated phrases, weird questions. They must not understand. They must not understand. His reflection grins. Father. And now you know what you have to do, right? Fagioli, sweating and delirious, whispering. Yes, I know what I have to do. Father. On your knees on the chickpeas, Fagioli. Now. Fagioli, as hypnotized. On my knees on the chickpeas. Feverishly, Fagioli slips a hand inside his jacket's inner pocket. He pulls out a small, crumpled bag. He opens it. Inside, dried chickpeas. He looks around. The bathroom is empty. With quick, desperate movements, he tosses the chickpeas into a corner of the floor. Then he kneels on them, gritting his teeth, forehead dripping with sweat. He locks himself inside a bathroom stall, kneeling on the chickpeas, while a rhythmic dripping from the broken pipes echoes around him like a shameful metronome. When Igor heard about this story, he ran away. How funny. Savedblog.com. Sediments carried far away. 3 scientists, Papaia, Banani, and Ravioli, and their assistant Igor, who work at NASA, start getting interested in creationism. Their superiors, worried, send them to the psychologist, Professor Fagioli, a shady character determined to get them fired by making them look insane. We are in Professor Fagioli's office, where Ravioli is undergoing evaluation. Meanwhile, Papaia and Banani continue their conversation about the book Banani found in his garage, a book that belonged to his grandfather, discussing the geological evidence of Noah's flood. Banani leaning over a geological map. It's interesting you say that. There's another important point. If the floodwaters really did cover the continents, rapidly depositing layers of sediment over vast areas, then that sediment must have been transported from very far away. Papaia, raising an eyebrow. You mean it didn't form there, on the spot? Banani, serious. Exactly. It had to come from distant sources, carried and deposited en masse. And guess what? That's exactly what we find. Papaia, curious. Do you have a concrete example? Banani, pointing to a photo of the Grand Canyon. The Coconino sandstone, you can see it clearly. This layer averages 96 meters thick, covers at least 518,000 square kilometers, and contains about 41,700 cubic kilometers of sand. Papaia, whistling softly. That's an enormous amount. Banani, nodding. Yeah, now the obvious question is, where did all that sand come from? And how do we know? Mineralogical analyses show it didn't form there. It was transported from far away, quickly and massively. Exactly what we would expect from a catastrophic event like the flood. Papaia, looking outside again, thoughtful. Maybe. The world tells more stories than we actually listen to. Igor with a sly tone. So we're like the sediments of the flood, and Papaia is the water. Banani, confused. Why? Igor, grinning. Just like the floodwaters, when Papaia travels with us, he always carries us far away, but to the wrong place. How funny. Savedblog.com. Christmas gag reflex. 3 scientists, Papaia, Banani, and Ravioli, and their assistant Igor, who work at NASA, start getting interested in creationism. Their superiors, worried, send them to the psychologist Professor Fagioli, a shady character determined to get them fired by making them look insane. We are in Professor Fagioli's office, where Ravioli is undergoing evaluation. Ravioli had been telling the story of when on Christmas Eve, he made all his relatives throw up after his mom emptied his old backpack, the one he'd hidden rotten fish in since middle school in front of everyone. The flashback ends. We return to Fagioli, who has snapped back to reality. Fagioli clears his throat, pretending to sound professional as he shakes off the flashback. Fagioli, serious, taking notes. Ravioli, you said your first reaction was panic. Good. And what did your mother do? Ravioli. She looked at me with utter disgust, then ran to the bathroom to throw up. Fagioli. No, I meant how did she react when she came out of the bathroom? Ravioli. She ran straight back in to throw up again. While all my relatives were groaning in disgust and scattering from the living room, I could hear her loudly retching from the service bathroom. I had never thought fish could survive that many years without fully decomposing. Fagioli. Spare me the details, Ravioli, or I'll end up throwing up too. Ravioli. Sorry, Professor. Fagioli. Right, but eventually, how did your mother react? I mean, after she was done throwing up? Igor then commented, after throwing up twice because of the rotten fish in Ravioli's backpack. What did his mom do? Oh. She sure didn't eat the fish, that's for sure. Maybe she thanked him. Oh, thanks, Ravioli. Maybe the lasagna had some bacteria. Good thing you made me puke it out. Or maybe she just carried on like nothing happened. Speaking of gastric juices, Raviolino, did you try that easy-to-digest recipe I gave you? How funny. SavedBlog.com. The truth about the fish. Flashback. We returned to little Ravioli's house right after the rotten fish incident. 3 scientists, Papaia, Banani, and Ravioli, and their assistant Igor, who work at NASOL, start getting interested in creationism. Their superiors, worried, send them to the psychologist, Professor Fagioli, a shady character determined to get them fired by making them look insane. We are in Professor Fagioli's office, where Ravioli is undergoing evaluation. Ravioli had been telling the story of when on Christmas Eve, he made all his relatives throw up after his mom emptied his old backpack stuffed with rotten fish hidden there since middle school in front of everyone. Ravioli's mom is holding the foul backpack with a tissue pressed to her nose. The whole family is still shaken by the pestilential smell that has invaded the house. Mom, with a choked voice, "Ravioli, would you care to explain how all that rotten fish ended up in here?" All eyes are on Ravioli. Dead silence, only the squeak of his chair as he squirms. Ravioli sweating profusely. You see, Mom, when I was little, at after-school care, they used to feed us fish. Mom nods, pressing the tissue tighter to her nose. Ravioli, confused and trembling. But I just couldn't stand fish. And if you didn't eat it, they made you sit at your desk until evening. Everyone holds their breath. Ravioli, collapsing. So I started hiding it in my backpack, so I wouldn't have to eat it, and then at home, I forgot to take it out. An uncle coughs weakly. Mom slowly lowers her arm, her face a mask of disbelief. Mom, coldly. So, all those times you said you had learned to like fish, were all lies? Ravioli in a whisper. Yeah. Mom clenches her fist, trembling. The guests exchange awkward glances. Mom, shattered. I used to brag about you to everyone, and you were mocking me. You lied to me for decades. Mom, holding back tears. Ravioli, why didn't you just tell me? If you had told me, I would have gone to talk to the teachers. I would have fixed everything. Ravioli, head hanging low. I know, Mom, but I was scared that if they found out, they'd make me eat even more fish. Igor then commented, Ravioli didn't tell his mom. He was being punished all day for not eating fish because he thought if they knew, they'd make him eat even more? Oh, come on, I've heard some crazy excuses, but this takes the cake. Did he seriously believe that? Like, imagine his mom going to the teacher. As Igor speaks, we fade into a flashback of an alternate past imagined by Igor. We're at little Ravioli's school where his mom has come to complain about the punishments inflicted by the teacher. Mom, Miss, please don't force Raviolino to eat that fish anymore. Raviolino can't stand it, and he's been hiding it in his backpack. Teacher, feigning innocence. Oh, really? I had no idea. I thought Raviolino actually liked fish now. How terrible. I'm so sorry. We won't make him eat it anymore. The teacher smiles politely, but her smile is far too sugary to be genuine. Mom, oh, thank you so much. Mom walks away relieved, but as soon as she's out the door, the teacher turns and fixes Ravioli with a murderous grin and a cold stare. Teacher, in the style of a 1920s gangster villain. Well, little Prince Raviolino doesn't want to eat his fish, huh? Today you'll eat double. And if you dare tell your mommy, it'll be triple. Janitor, confiscate his backpack immediately. How funny. SavedBlog.com. Missing quartz, 3 scientists, Papaia, Banani, and Ravioli, and their assistant Igor, who work at NASOL, start getting interested in creationism. Their superiors, worried, send them to the psychologist, Professor Fagioli, a shady character determined to get them fired by making them look insane. We are in Professor Fagioli's office, where Ravioli is undergoing evaluation. Meanwhile, Papaia and Banani continue their conversation about a book Banani found in his garage, a book that belonged to his grandfather, and talks about geological evidence of Noah's flood. Papaia, tilting his head. But how can you tell that sand didn't form right there, in place? Banani, holding up the sample. Because the sand grains in the Coconino sandstone are almost pure quartz papaya. Quartz is a hard mineral, like a natural glass. And that's exactly what gives that rock its characteristic light yellow color. Papaya, nodding, focused. And what does that have to do with the location? Banani, pointing to another layer on a geological map. Underneath the Coconino, there's the Hermit Formation. It's completely different. It's made of siltstone and shale, reddish-brown in color. It can't be the source of the sand. The materials are too fine and completely different. Papaya, whispering. So the sand must have come from somewhere else. Banani, firmly. Exactly, it couldn't have formed there. It had to be transported from afar, just like you'd expect in a catastrophic event. Igor, pretending to think hard. Continuing the analogy with the Coconino sediments. Papaya and the others don't really belong at this observatory either. Banani, eyes widening. Why not? Igor, in a serious tone, holding back a laugh. See, just like the Coconino sand, compared to its ground, all the scientists at the observatory have something that you guys are missing. Banani, hopefully. A home of their own. Igor, grinning. No, Banani, a brain. Papaya, standing up indignantly. Hey, I have a degree. Igor, unfazed with a sly smile. Yeah, in memory loss. Banani, seriously thinking it over. Oh, does that faculty really exist? Igor, dryly, mercilessly. Only for you. The only degree where you have to forget everything to pass. How funny. SavedBlog.com. Mom doesn't forgive ravioli. 3 scientists, Papaya, Banani, and Ravioli, and their assistant Igor, who work at Nasal, start getting interested in creationism. Their superiors, worried, send them to the psychologist, Professor Fagioli, a shady character determined to get them fired by making them look insane. We are in Professor Fagioli's office, where Ravioli is undergoing evaluation. Ravioli's telling the story of how on Christmas Eve, he made all the relatives throw up when his mom emptied out his old backpack full of rotten fish hidden there since middle school right in front of everyone, and how he eventually confessed to his mom that he had lied and hidden the fish at after-school care to avoid eating it and being punished. Mom clutches her chest, shocked. Mom, bitterly. And instead you hid everything and let me believe a lie for your entire life. Sound of chairs scraping. One by one, the relatives stand up, grab their coats, smooth down their clothes, and shoot heavy, judgmental looks at Ravioli without saying a word. Aunt Gelsomina walks to the door, shaking her head, while Uncle Carlo lets out a loud sigh and looks at Ravioli as if he were a living disappointment. Aunt Gelsomina, whispering to an uncle. This is worse than the time the cat fell into the cake. Uncle Carlo nods solemnly, giving Ravioli one last look of disapproval. Mom, shouting after everyone. Merry Christmas, huh? Merry Christmas to all. Door slammed shut. Final shot of Ravioli sitting alone at the table with the rotten backpack at his feet. The stench still hangs heavily in the air. Ravioli, muttering, at least they didn't make me eat the fish. End of flashback. We return to Fagioli's office. Ravioli. She was very disappointed, and I think she still hasn't forgiven me to this day. Igor then commented, well, I'd say that was a pretty measured reaction. Just a couple of ancestral hate-filled stares, 4 final goodbyes, and a last will and testament rewritten on the front door. Nothing that can't be fixed with a fresh fish and 20 years of therapy. Honestly, in my opinion, Ravioli's relatives were perfectly right to hate him. Not so much for the lies, nor for the nuclear-level stench, but for the real crime, desecrating the poor designer coffee table. Hey, a tragedy that cries out for vengeance louder than all the spoiled mussels of the Mediterranean. But we can understand poor Ravioli. He was scared they'd make him eat even more fish. Sure, Ravioli. Maybe they would have even tied you to the chair with a funnel in your mouth, like some wartime interrogation, pouring fish stew straight into your stomach. Maybe to make up for it, your mom could have invited everyone to a nice reconciliation dinner at the Miramare restaurant. Specialty. Fish, of course. Well, if Ravioli's goal was to never have to eat fish again, I'd say mission accomplished. A true overkill. After that night, nobody in the family would even dare to look at a fishbone without fainting until next Christmas. How funny. SavedBlog.com. Obsession with cleanliness. 3 scientists, Papaia, Banani, and Ravioli, and their assistant Igor, who work at Nazal, start getting interested in creationism. Their superiors, worried, send them to the psychologist, Professor Fagioli, a shady character determined to get them fired by making them look insane. We are in Professor Fagioli's office, where Ravioli is undergoing evaluation. Ravioli is telling the story of how on Christmas Eve, he made all the relatives throw up when his mom emptied out his old backpack, full of rotten fish hidden there since middle school, right in front of everyone. Ravioli. She was very disappointed, and I think she still hasn't forgiven me to this day. Fagioli. It was the showdown. All the lies came to the surface. Ravioli. Well, more than coming to the surface, I'd say they... Fagioli. No, stop telling nonsense. Ravioli. Okay, fine. Fagioli. Did she get very angry? Ravioli. Not visibly, since she's a very controlled woman. But from the look in her eyes, I could tell she was irreparably offended. After all, I had been lying to her for years. Fagioli. And you ruined Christmas dinner, I suppose. Ravioli. My relatives left disgusted and full of resentment for not being able to have dessert. Fagioli. Yes, your relatives. Ravioli. Besides, there was the problem of the mess my backpack caused. My mom is something of a cleanliness freak. This is one of the reasons she was so exhausted. In addition to working all day, she felt she had to keep the house spotless. That coffee table in the living room was the piece of furniture she cared about the most. Fagioli. This was a huge offense to her, especially on Christmas Eve. What a disaster, Ravioli. Fagioli writes in his notebook. Igor. Scandalized relatives, lies exposed, ruined furniture. No one here is getting the main issue. The biggest offense was the fish. How funny. SavedBlog.com. Traces of waves. 3 scientists, Papaia, Banani, and Ravioli, and their assistant Igor, who work at Nasal, start getting interested in creationism. Their superiors, worried, send them to the psychologist, Professor Fagioli, a questionable character determined to get them fired by making them look insane. We are in Professor Fagioli's office, where Ravioli is undergoing evaluation. Meanwhile, Papaia and Banani continue the conversation about the book, found by Banani in the garage, which belonged to his grandfather, discussing the geological evidence of Noah's flood. Banani, pointing to the details on the map with a pen. Look here. The sand formations in the Coconino sandstone show waves slanting to the south. This tells us that the water that deposited the sand came from the north. Papaia, scrutinizing the map. So, the sand didn't come from the south, as one might think? Banani, nodding confidently. Exactly. The direction of the sand waves is clear. And there's another important clue. The Coconino thins out and disappears to the north in Utah, while the Hermit Formation continues to stretch eastward into Utah and beyond. Papaia thoughtfully. So, if the sand thins out to the north, that means its origin was further north, right? Banani, smiling satisfied. Exactly. The pure quartz sand of the Coconino must have come from an even farther northern source, beyond the reddish-brown formation of the Hermit. This means the material was transported over long distances. Igor. The Coconino bears the marks of the waves. Similarly, our salary is marked by the waves on which Papaia's decisions go. How funny. SavedBlog.com. Thanks for watching.